intuitive eating is a self-care framework that is designed to really help you reconnect with your body's inner wisdom, connect with your hunger, fullness, and satisfaction cues that your body gives you to learn really what, when, and how to eat that's best for you. So it is a weight neutral approach, meaning that weight is not at the center of intuitive eating.
You're listening to episode 106 of the Mom Talks with Christa podcast. Thanks for joining me this week, guys. I'm so excited to share another great episode with you today. I hope you're having a great week so far, staying calm, finding some time for yourself, and asking for help when you need it. I think it's so important that we remind ourselves that asking for help does not make ourselves weak or unable to do things. It just means we are reaching out and we understand that we can't be superwomen all the time. Sometimes help is required. So just your reminder, if you are struggling in any area, it's okay to ask for help. So I just want to welcome you guys though to another week of Mom Talks with Christa. We have a great month of interviews that I'm so excited to share with you, covering all kinds of topics, but a lot of it surrounds around self-care in one aspect or another. And I think that's really important for the month of November. We have Thanksgiving, so a lot of it has to do with gratitude. But in that, we're taught a lot of, growing up gratitude, like making lists of what you're grateful for. And obviously that is part of it, but also taking the time to center yourself and be grateful for yourself, your body, the things you are able to do, and the time that you have to take care of yourself. So kind of moving along with that angle, I just want to talk about some of the episodes that we have lined up for this month. So next week we have Whitney Copeland coming on to talk about self-care during tragedy. We'll get more into it obviously in her episode, but her and her family suffered a tragic bus fire accident. I think it was about 2 years ago now, where there was severe burns. Her children have been going through a lot. Her family has been going through a lot. And so she talks about how to find self-care during tragedy. And she's so real and upfront and honest about everything that they went through. And she shares her journey through recovery and struggle, as a family, as individuals, and so much more. So I think that's a really important episode. That's next week. The week of Thanksgiving, I have a solo pod. I'm talking about negative thoughts, which we all have from time to time, and how to retrain your brain with small hacks every day. And this is one of my most favorite topics to talk about because as someone, when I was younger, struggled a lot with negative thoughts, and I think I still do from time to time, I never realized I had the power to retrain my brain. We don't necessarily know where negative thoughts come from. There's some theories out there that's evolutionary to protect ourselves. There's some that could be, things that were said to us when we were growing up, whether it was family, friends, coworkers, school, like classmates, teachers. It could be anything that just you held on to, and whether they said it in a kind way and we took it different ways, or they said it in a mean way, they can have an effect on us. And so I'm going to be talking about how we can retrain your brain in little hacks every day. And I think it's important to kind of go along with that self-care. And I always say this, but self-care is not just a one flip of the switch. It is something that we work at every day. And it's important to give ourselves credit for trying. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for trying. There's always like this goal or finish line, and we're like, oh, if we don't get to it quick enough, then I'm not doing enough. And that's not true. And that's not the case. So I want you to remember that just trying every day, or just being aware of it. Like there's some days where I struggle hard at self-care or self-love. And I'm like, I didn't do anything to like really take time for myself today, but just acknowledging like, okay, that's okay. You know what? We struggle some days. Let's be better tomorrow. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to journal. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to look in the mirror and tell myself 3 things I love about myself. So little things like that, just being aware, not all days are going to be great, but just give yourself grace and applaud yourself for the efforts that you make. Ending out the month, we have Nicole Britton talking about honest motherhood and the reality of postpartum. So we are diving into the 4th trimester, which I think is so important. And for those of you that are like, wait, fourth trimester. I didn't know there were 4 trimesters. So the fourth trimester is once baby is here. This is your postpartum stage, but they call it the fourth trimester because it's you being kind of born again. So they talk about the baby being born again, or baby being born, but in this stage, you are being born again. You are a mother. You are turning a new chapter in your book. And so I think it's important to talk about you in that journey. And so Nicole really dives into what it was like for her and how being honest with ourselves and other moms help the whole community. It was like years ago, and it still happens, especially with social media. People out there that kind of pretend, right? And so she talks about when she first went on social media after becoming a mom, she was like, oh my gosh, all these moms out there, these like perfect lives. They're the best moms, the best wives, the best, coworker, the best boss, or whatever it is that falls into their life. And she's like, I can barely manage this. I can barely do this. And at that point, she started then posting real things that went on. And then the influx of people that were relating to her, realizing like we all have our struggles. And I think it's important to be real about our struggles. Not like we have to put everything on blast that we're going through, or, be super like, oh, this happened today. And, you don't have to share everything, but just saying, you know what? Yeah, I really struggled when I came to, sleep with my newborn. I couldn't figure it out. We had some really rough weeks in there, or breastfeeding wasn't as easy as I was told. Or just being really honest allows other moms to connect to each other and creates a safe space. So she talks about that. And so it's a really great episode. This all goes back to self-care as well. Important notes as well for this month. Our next Peanut Pod is November 17th. And we are talking all about holiday anxiety tips to overcome it. This is so important because I know with the holidays coming up, there are a lot of expectations, not only on what people put on us, but what we put on ourselves. If you are a people pleaser, I like to say I'm a recovering people pleaser, but if you are a people pleaser, a lot of times we put the most pressure on ourselves because we want to do right by other people. We want them to be proud of us or notice maybe something that we're doing, but they don't always put the pressure on us. It's us being like, no, we want to do this. Great. Because I'll even like ask myself sometimes, I'm like, where's this pressure coming from? I'm like, it's me. I'm the problem. Okay. Taylor Swift, just throwing that on there. Okay. Anyways, so whether you're hosting, traveling, cooking things, changing up your schedule, you just had a baby and you're trying to figure out how to, bring baby to the holiday, having to be uncomfortable, maybe in new situations or situations that maybe aren't your favorite, maybe relatives you don't normally see, or new relatives if you're part of a new family, whatever it is, it can all cause stress and anxiety. So we kind of want to just talk through it, maybe share some tips and just empower you. That's the biggest thing, is empower you, because I always say like there's no one size fits all for like tips and tricks. You kind of have to take what works for you and leave the rest. So I go through tips, but I want you to be like, okay, what applies to my life right now? What am I struggling with? Okay, I'm going to pull this, but I'm going to leave everything else. So join us if you can. Join the Mom Talks with Christa group on the Peanut app, and you can get all the important dates there. Awesome. And then of course, if you're looking for breastfeeding tips and don't know where to start, can be very overwhelming. I know right now, like as I'm recording, I'm 21 weeks, and this is out, I'll be 22, but I'm getting prepared for breastfeeding and, registry, all this stuff. So it can be very overwhelming, because there's so many things on the internet, so many options. So for breastfeeding tips, if you don't know where to start, check out our breastfeeding starter guide. This is a free 3-part download that talks about different types of milk that you can expect and when you can expect them to come in, what to put in your breastfeeding basket. So a lot of times you'll see people have like a breastfeeding basket that has all the essentials. This makes it easy so you can just have one thing, so you're not constantly getting up, searching for them, have them one place, what to put in there, and then ways to boost your milk supply, plus some bonus tips. So sign up. The show notes, you can find it there as well. Also, if you're not on our email list yet, you're missing out on a lot of important announcements and discounts. So sign up now, get 15% off at the website at mommyknowsbest.com. We also announce product launches, exclusive deals, mommy events, so much more. We're here for you guys. We got you. Okay. On today's episode, I have Sarah Gold Anzlovar. And I am really excited to share this one because it was something that was like close to my heart. But here's just a little bit about Sarah. So she's a registered dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor who helps moms take the stress out of eating and learn to eat to feel their best and show up for their little ones. She works with moms to ditch the mom diet culture and bounce back culture while helping them feel more confident in their food choices and body. And she believes when taking care of yourself, you can take better care of your family. She also has 2 little kids, 10 months and 3.5. And so she can relate to the challenges of motherhood. So I think this is just an amazing episode to share with you guys today, especially before the holidays. Intuitive eating, get rid of bounce back culture. We've had episodes about this before. Stop living to other people's expectations of who you should be. Listen to your gut. Listen to what makes sense for you. You know you best. All right, here's today's interview, and I will meet you at the end for some MomTales of the week. All right, guys, today on the podcast, I have Sarah Gold, who is a registered dietitian focusing in intuitive eating in postpartum. She helps a lot of moms. We have a really great discussion of how to be intuitive eaters and kind of listen to your body, reconnect with your body, and most importantly, do that in a way in front of your children so it kind of breaks that cycle that, a lot of times we saw growing up, commenting on food we eat, so not allowing certain foods and all of that kind of stuff. Without further ado, here's my interview with Sarah Gold. Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you today. Can you just tell everyone a little bit about what you do?
I am a registered dietitian and certified intuitive eating counselor. I help moms, moms to be postpartum, and then any time in the motherhood journey, learn to eat to feel their best by getting out of diet culture and learning to reconnect with their body's inner wisdom and really learn what foods help them feel their best. We do that through individual counseling. And I'm also a mom of 2 little guys. I have a 3.5-year-old and a little guy who'll be 1 in 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks. So I'm still in that postpartum period, so to speak. And I also have I'm a dog mom. So I have a golden retriever pup. So he was my first baby.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. So I know like intuitive eating is one of those things that we're hearing a lot more now, but for those that aren't familiar with what it is, can you kind of explain what intuitive eating means?
So intuitive eating is a self-care framework that is designed to really help you reconnect with your body's inner wisdom, connect with your hunger, fullness, and satisfaction cues that your body gives you to learn really what, when, and how to eat that's best for you. So it is a weight neutral approach, meaning that weight is not at the center of intuitive eating. There are 10 principles that guide intuitive eating. So those principles help us, again, ditching diet culture is a big part of intuitive eating. It's sort of the answer to diet culture. And those principles help people really learn to, again, reconnect with your body through honoring hunger, honoring fullness, learning what foods satisfy you, learning to respect your body. It's a process that's been validated by over 100 studies to show that there are many, many, many health benefits to intuitive eating. There are some myths about it. There are a lot of myths about intuitive eating that if we want to get into, we could, but ultimately, it's not another diet. It is a way of, again, reconnecting with your body to sort of learn to eat for life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. Cause like, I think a lot of times, or at least like how we were maybe raised was like, you got to avoid certain foods, or you gotta, don't do that because it helped her lose weight, or don't eat that because it, instead of like, kind of like following this guidebook instead of listening to our own bodies and being like, okay, well, how does this food make me feel? Or do I want this food right now? So is that kind of more along the lines of intuitive eating, kind of individualized, like, what am I craving right now? What makes me feel good? What is my body telling me I'm full? That kind of thing.
Exactly. So if you think about kind of one question to ask yourself when you're making a food decision, it would be, what sounds good to me right now and how do I want to feel afterwards? So
Mm.
it gets sort of the two really important parts of, there's so much to intuitive eating. Like I said, there's 10 principles, but the two really important parts are honoring what your body needs. So what's going to taste good to me right now? What do I feel like eating? What am I in the mood for? But pairing that with, how do I want to feel? Because, a lot of people think, oh, intuitive eating is just eating whatever you want, whenever you want, and I'm just going to eat pizza all day, right? And pizza is absolutely part of intuitive eating, but sometimes eating pizza is actually maybe not going to make you give you the energy that you need to get through an afternoon of meetings, or that it might only keep you full. A slice of pizza is only going to keep you full for an hour, but you have a big day ahead of you and you need something that's going to really satisfy you and keep your blood sugar stable and keep you energized. On the flip side, honoring those cravings is a big part of it, so that you don't end up going down to an overeating episode, or what a lot of people experience as a binge later, because you chose to eat something that wasn't going to satisfy that craving.
Yeah, definitely. Like in that diet culture, you like avoid, and then like, I know I've been there, and then it's like, yeah, you go down that rabbit hole of like binging a certain food because nothing's satisfied. Like if you really want ice cream and you're like, okay, well, I'll just have like some frozen berries, or I'll just,
Right.
You kind of like tippy toe around it, when it's like, if I would have just had the scoop of ice cream or whatever, I probably would have like satisfied that craving instead of eating 20 different things that didn't.
Exactly. Oh yeah. We've all been there, where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to have the fruit instead of the dessert that I actually really want. But at the end of the day, you probably ended up eating more than if you just ate the scoop of ice cream and moved on.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you're just standing at your pantry and just like, all right, I'm just gonna have a little bit of this and a little bit of this. And then it just kind of snowballs.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
for women that have, kind of grown into this like habit of dieting, maybe it was something that was programmed in them when they were younger. Maybe it happened like during pregnancy or postpartum. How can they
Yep.
kind of get out of that habit, or kind of be more aware of these harmful habits?
That's a really great question. So the first thing is to kind of recognize the harm that it might be doing to you. So what are those diet rules? How are those diet rules affecting your life? Are you missing out on moments? A lot of moms come to me because they're just tired and are exhausted of thinking about food all the time and being so disconnected from their kids or their family, their things that are going on in their life, their vacations. They're missing out on big moments. So how has dieting really harmed you? A lot of women also get to a point where we know actually dieting leads to weight gain. It's one of the biggest predictors of weight gain in the long term. So yes, a lot of diets will help you lose weight quickly, or in the short term, but up to somewhere around 90 to 95% of people actually gain that weight back that they initially lost, and up to 2/3 end up at a higher weight than when they started. For some women, it's that harm of, gosh, I've dieted my whole life and now I'm in a larger body than I ever once was. How can I get out of this? And then for a lot of moms, they have this moment of, I want to raise my kids differently. I don't want my kids to kind of grow up with the beliefs that I did. And so they're, interested in healing their relationship with their body and food so that they can model healthy eating and raise healthy, independent eaters. So, I think a lot of it comes back to figuring out, turning into what is your reason why, because that's what's going to help you actually ditch the diet culture long term, because popular culture is diet culture and it's everywhere. And so you're going to go getting into intuiting. It's amazing that, in the last decade or so, well, to back up, intuitive eating has been around since the 90s. It was the founders of the movement wrote the book back in 95, but it didn't really gain traction until, I don't know, maybe in the last 10 years, and even more so in the last few years. And it's awesome. There's so much, it's becoming more of a thing, and there's a lot more support and community out there. So it makes it easier for women to embrace intuitive eating and ditch diet culture. And it's still everywhere. And there's diet culture is still everywhere. And you're going to go against popular culture by deciding to ditch diets. It's still going to be at the office, in the moms group, in, at family gatherings. So having your true reason why and recognizing kind of what the harm is that dieting's done to you is going to be the important foundation to be able to kind of move forward beyond it.
Yeah, I actually, like, before this job, like 4 years ago, I used to work for a gym in a corporate office, and it was like,
Yeah.
I got very sucked into like the food plans and like, people that would come in and like, yeah, they would lose this weight and stuff, but a lot of times they were doing it for these reasons that were kind of beyond themselves. It was like, it wasn't like, I want to feel good. It was like, I want to look good at my reunion, or I want to, it was all for other people. And it kind of took away. And then, the same thing, these challenges would be over and then they would gain all the weight back because they were just kind of losing it for this small increment of time that wasn't really for themselves, and kind of lose themselves in it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I hear that so often. It's, I want to, look good for an event, or, a lot of women before, maybe before marriage, before kids, like want to look a certain way to find, because they think that that's what men want, or, but the thing is it's real in our society. We, the compliments that come with weight loss ultimately, or changing the way your body looks, it's real. So we have this culture that believes that smaller is better, or looking a certain way is better. And so it's hard, because giving up diets may mean that you're in a body that's not praised in our society, or in a body that's different than it was 10 years ago, because your body has changed. Maybe you've had a couple of kids, and things change when you have kids. So
yeah, no, that's so true. When you kind of start eating for how you feel, like you might gain a little bit of weight sometimes, but you tend to feel better. Like I know, like, so I went on those, like, where I was working out all the time and I was my like smallest weight, but I was avoiding so many foods, and I was like, I couldn't go out to eat because I'd be like, oh, is there too much oil in that? And you kind of start obsessing, and then you kind of realize like, I'm not happy living like this, you're kind of not sustainable.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's another harm that I didn't mention. The dieting is a big predictor of disordered eating and eating disorders. And, it's, even though it's normalized in our culture to constantly obsess about food, it is not a normal behavior. And it takes away from so much of your life. You're missing out on social events. You're not going to parties. Maybe you're not going to ice cream. You're taking your kids to ice cream and you're not eating the ice cream because you're not allowed to on your diet, and then you're constantly worried about, oh, maybe I ate the ice cream. Now what is that going to do to me? So the mental space that is freed up from ditching diet culture is, and kind of moving into a world of intuitive eating is incredible.
And so how can we kind of find the balance between like not judging ourselves for, eating that ice cream or having the extra slice of pizza, and then also being mindful of what we're eating at the same time?
Yeah. So, I think I would try to trade judgment for curiosity. So asking yourself, getting curious about, why did I eat that? Did I eat the extra slice of pizza because I was truly hungry, and maybe I skipped breakfast, or missed my morning snack, or maybe something was too light, or maybe I did a big workout and I needed those extra calories? Did I eat the extra slice of pizza because I wasn't being mindful when I was eating, and I, kind of got distracted, and then I felt overfull? And how did that make me feel learning from that experience? Did I eat because I'm stressed and I have no other coping mechanisms right now? So can we get curious about the reason behind why you're making those food choices, or why those things are happening? And then similarly, I would get curious about, why are you judging yourself for those food choices? What is the reason behind it? Is it because of years of dieting and years of beliefs and that food is going to make you gain weight, or is it going to cause other problems for you? Do I feel bad about eating that? Am I judging myself because it actually kind of made me feel like crap and I don't have like great energy now? And when you get curious, you start to learn about what foods are going to help you feel well. And know that there are foods that are just meant to taste good, right? Like I talk a lot with my clients about there's sort of like three spaces that food can fit in. Some foods are primarily for nutrition and going to help us, improve our well-being. And some foods are primarily meant for pleasure. And a lot of foods, most foods fit into both categories. So they're meant for, and with the first category, I'm not saying that you should eat foods because they're good for you, even if you don't like them. But there are some times that we might make a choice about a food because we know it's going to give us energy. It may not be exactly what we're craving, but we know we want to feel really good. An example of that might be, I'm choosing to eat like kind of bland cereal before I go out for a run because I know that it like gives me a little energy and it's not going to upset my stomach. I don't really enjoy like a plain bowl of cereal or like Cheerios that like have not a lot of flavor, but it's giving me that energy I need because I know I need to eat something before I run that's going to settle my stomach. Whereas, so there's kind of that space of food. And then there's decisions around, okay, what foods are going to satisfy me and make me feel my best. Most foods fall into that category. And then some of them are just going to be for pleasure. And there is room for that in a healthy diet. And when you start to tune into kind of what your body needs and how you want to feel, and ask yourself that question of how do I want to feel after I'm eating, you sort of land in a place where all foods are just normalized and you're not overeating ice cream or pizza, but they're part of your diet.
That's really good. And so you talk about how weight is not the center of intuitive eating. But as our society, like weight is such a, we're getting more acceptable now in society and praising body positivity a little bit more. But still, I think women a lot of times focus on that weight. Like, oh, I was 20 pounds lighter before I was this. So for those women that are, wanting to get into intuitive eating, but, in the past, their only way of losing weight or feeling better is by following that plan. How can they kind of ease into intuitive eating, or what tip would you have for them to kind of focus more on the eating part of it and being mindful, less about the weight?
Yeah. So this is the absolute hardest part for nearly everyone. And because it's you're giving up the sort of chase for a smaller body. And for a lot of women, that's really, really, really scary. And the hang up where a lot of people get stuck. So I want to acknowledge that, first of all, we live in a society that praises thinness, and it's great. There's more body acceptance. The body acceptance movement is definitely growing. And it's still really hard to be in a body that you're not used to, whether that's, bigger than it used to be, or maybe it's just you've always been that size, but it's hard. You have, doctors or healthcare providers telling you that weight loss is the answer. So I want to first just acknowledge that this is a really hard part of it. The thing that I encourage women who are sort of in that space to do is to start by just exploring some of your own beliefs around weight. And what does being in a smaller body mean to you? Have you ever had success truly holding on to a body that is smaller than you are now? And what did it take to get there? Were you happy? Were you able to live your life to the fullest? And what's different in your life now? I work with a lot of moms, and they may come to me saying, well, I maintained a certain weight in my 20s for without even trying or whatever. And I can't get back to that weight. Well, what were you doing? Were you running marathons? Were you, or exercising a lot more than your life allows for right now because you have two little kids at home and a 20-minute workout is all you can fit in? Were you, how were you eating, and what did your life look like as far as meal planning goes? Like, how has your life changed? So I would start to examine kind of where those beliefs have come from. What do they truly mean to you? Were you truly happier at that lower weight? What does that, what does your life look like there? And then from a more practical eating perspective, I think it can be really helpful. Something that's really helpful for a lot of women to sort of get beyond some of the weight stuff is actually to just sort of start to trust the process of, I'm going to eat enough to satisfy my body. And then they realize that they don't feel so crazy around food anymore. So eating regular meals. So are you eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Are they balanced? Are you allowing yourself snacks if you're hungry? And, making sure that those snacks are balanced. So I work with a lot of the moms on just sort of like normalizing their eating schedule. And that's a really good first kind of step into intuitive eating, because they're able to recognize that, oh, when I actually honor my hunger and I eat enough to feel satisfied, I feel so much better around food and I feel better in my body.
I always think about, especially as moms, like moms are so impressionable on their children. And so,
Yeah.
especially, if they're saying like, oh, I look, fat in this, or I can't eat that, kids will pick up on it. So for someone, maybe they're still struggling themselves a little bit, but how can they speak around their children so we can kind of end that cycle, and, the kids can kind of maybe start, raise that way, being intuitive eaters?
That's such a good question. And something that I think a lot of moms experience, because I work with a lot of moms who it's having kids that come sort of give them the catalyst of like, I want to raise my kids in a healthy environment. Like, but my relationship with food is really, really tense right now. So how do I sort of fake it till I make it, right? Like there's a little bit of like putting on a face. And so number one would be to just kind of start noticing the language that's coming out of your mouth. How are you describing food? How are you talking about food? Stopping yourself in those moments of, oh, I can't eat that, or we need to eat this because it's good for us, or, any language around good or bad foods, or even being healthy or not healthy, sort of just trying to normalize all the language around foods. Some of the language that I help my moms use around foods is, fun foods. So those foods that are for pleasure, oh, these are fun foods. And there are some foods that some foods offer us nutrition, or some foods offer us things, depending on how old your kids are, some foods offer us things that are going to help us be strong and grow big and grow tall and, help heal your boo-boos and things like that. So kind of like changing the language of good or bad or healthy or not healthy to like what food is actually going to do for you. And you'll start to internalize that too, the more you talk to your kids about it. The other thing I would sort of check is the body checking and the body language. So if you notice yourself constantly like checking yourself in a mirror, or grabbing your stomach, or grabbing parts of your body that maybe you feel uncomfortable with, kids notice that. So trying to stop those behaviors when you're in their presence, at least. And stopping those behaviors for your kids can actually really help with your journey as well. So, some of it again is like faking it till you make it, like doing the best you can, putting on a face for your kids. But the more you can sort of notice and then stop those behaviors around your kids, the more that the less that they will pick up that, you're struggling. And then lastly, I would say is, think about kind of how you're clothing yourself. So are you trying to fit your body into clothes that maybe don't fit your body, your here and now body? Because when we do that, then we're more likely to say, oh, I feel fat, or oh, I feel like my stomach looks terrible, or you're more likely to do that body checking that your kids are going to notice. So can you start to put, buy clothes that invest in a few pieces, even if you still have that hope of weight loss, what can you put on your body right now that's going to feel good for you so that it's not something that you're doing in front of your kids?
Yeah, that's so powerful, because I think there's like a certain time of our lives when we're so focused on like the number of the clothing, or what
Hmm.
size it is, and it's so much more freeing when we're like, I'm gonna buy clothes that fit, because no one's gonna walk up to me and be like, what size pants are those? It's just more of
Right.
like a internal kind of like battle. And then it's, I mean, I had those years in high school where I'd be like squeezing into pants and I'd be so uncomfortable in class, but I was like, but it's okay because I fit into this number. But I was in so much like pain. I was like so uncomfortable. And so kind of making peace with
Right.
that. And yeah.
Exactly. And the things that I like to keep in mind, one is that clothes are meant to fit your body, not the other way around.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I talk a lot about with clients is you might be three different sizes at three different stores. So, what does that even tell you about a size, right? Like, size is just, I know it's just a number, but it's a number that we kind of get stuck on. But if you can kind of get past that number and put on clothes that fit your body, that actually helps you think about your body a whole lot less, because when you're comfortable, you're more confident.
Mhm. Totally. It's like a night and day kind of thing. Yeah, it's like after, like I was saying, after years of like trying to fit in clothes just for a certain size, then when you start like shopping, you're like, oh, this looks good and I feel good in it because it actually fits. You don't really care
Right.
about that
Right.
size.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It fits your body.
And so
Yeah.
how can we collectively ditch this diet culture? I mean, I know it's everywhere. It's camouflage sometimes. It's very sneaky sometimes. So how can we be more aware of it and work together to kind of ditch it and help other moms kind of see that?
First of all, get angry at it. The diet industry is over a $70 billion industry with less than a 5% success rate. Like,
Mhm.
what? I always just think back to, if diets worked, we wouldn't always be looking for the next one, right? We're constantly in search for the next quick fix, but nothing actually works long term. So get angry at it. That's the first step. And then, it's definitely an uphill battle that we're all kind of fighting against, but to fight back, small things that you can do that can make a big difference in your life and the people in your lives, the people in your life, set boundaries. So that means setting boundaries around diet talk, notice where it's happening and try to stop it. So whether that's setting boundaries with family members and friends around, I'm not going to be part of this conversation, that, when diet talk comes in, whether it's about body or about a food being good or bad or whatever it is. Set boundaries for yourself on places like social media. So social media, is a great place to find actually anti-diet culture stuff.
Mhm.
A lot of it great intuitive eating resources on social media, but diet culture still runs rampant on social media. And so that may mean unfollowing or muting people who are, promoting diet culture or like really steeped in that culture. So that, because the more you can kind of remove it from your life, the more you're able to fight back against it in those conversations. For people who are feeling like extra motivated or extra sassy, like, start standing up for people in different size bodies and celebrating body diversity. People, that may mean standing up against, someone in your life who kind of talks negatively about body size.
Mhm.
And then, just recognizing all of the different places that it shows up so that you can start to set those boundaries. You're right. It shows up in a lot of different forms. So it's not just about weight, but there's a whole wellness culture around eating certain foods or taking supplements to like achieve this optimal wellness that I don't even know what we're trying to achieve sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
and so kind of realizing that that is just another form of diet culture, things like, and that, diet culture it sort of exists everywhere. So recognizing where it's showing up, and then again, going back to setting those boundaries for yourself.
Yeah. And kind of in another kind of like segment of that diet culture is that like bounce back culture, like those ads
Mm. Mhm.
targeting postpartum moms to like, oh, get back to your, you know, self before pregnancy or, whatever. And so how can we protect ourselves from this bounce back culture? And kind of what is the reality behind it?
Yeah. Oh, bounce back culture is so strong. And, it's crazy to me because a lot of women are driving it, but, you spend 9 months growing this human, and a lot of women are praised for what their body is doing. And then you birth this tiny human that you are now, first of all, that birth was a trauma to your body, no matter how that baby came into your life. And then, so you're healing from this trauma, and your hormones are completely all over the place for months afterwards, right? And then you're trying to keep this tiny human alive and feed a human that doesn't really know how to eat, no matter how you're feeding this human. So your life has totally changed. Whether it's your first or your fourth kid, bringing a baby into your home totally changes everything.
Mhm.
And then you're supposed to all of a sudden just be back to what in the body, doing the things that you were before you had this tiny human. And it's just like boggles my mind that it's even a thing, but it is.
Yeah.
So, and then, adding on to that, just in the last couple of years, like parenting and having babies has become even more overwhelming because of the pandemic and the lack of support for moms and all of that. So we've got a lot working against us. And then supposed to, yeah, look a certain way or go back to, that bounce back culture is pervasive in the fitness industry too, like not even looking a certain way, but getting back to different types of exercise that maybe you did previously. And so, I encourage women, whether if you're in the pre-baby or your pregnant stage, like that is if you're thinking about it, like that's an even better time to like prepare yourself. And I've definitely helped women sort of set themselves up for success in that space. But, at any point postpartum, I would really look at where are those messages coming into your life and how can you again, it comes back to setting boundaries around it. So
Mhm.
a big one is social media. Again, setting those social media boundaries and the thing about bounce back culture is that it shows up in sneaky places,
Mhm.
especially on social media, but in the whole media, TV, magazines, everywhere. But, there are people that I personally follow that I love for their food content or their chefs or their mom content. Like they provide really valuable resources about motherhood, and they're showing before and after pictures, or they're talking about how they got back to their pre-baby body, or how they within 12 weeks they were running marathons again. That's an
Mhm.
extreme, but so I had to mute or unfollow those people, even as someone who's like super confident about knowing what my body is going to do, and it's going to do what it'll do, and I know how to take care of myself. But no one's immune to it. But getting those messages out of my social media feed really helped my brain space, right? Because I'm not seeing that. So following, unmuting anything anyone that is triggering to you. And it doesn't mean that they are a bad person or that they're doing something wrong. And it's just that they're in a different space that's not helpful to you. Similarly, again, setting boundaries with family members and friends who might be talking about looking a certain way after baby, getting back to your culture, back to your pre-baby body. Again, that can show up in like really surprising ways. Parents, grandparents, and so deciding for yourself how you're going to engage in those conversations. It can take just having a conversation with a parent, a friend, that it's not helpful to you. you're focusing on taking care of your baby and taking care of yourself, and you're doing what you need to take care of yourself. For other people, it can actually mean like shutting down conversations and saying, I'm gonna walk away from this conversation. I value our relationship and our friendship or whatever it is, but I can't be part of this conversation. And when you're ready to talk about something other than my body or what I'm choosing to eat, then I will re-engage.
Yeah, I love that. That kind of goes into the intuitive eating where it's listening to your own body about
Mhm.
what you want to be surrounded with
Mhm.
and how you want to proceed postpartum. And like, instead
Right.
of being in flux with your body's not good enough the way it is, or you need to change your body, you can just be like, let me do my own
Yeah.
journey and see what
Right.
makes sense for me.
Yeah, and I think it's just such a common thread through what's important in motherhood. It's no different than, learning what's best for your baby. In your gut what's best for your baby, whether that's how to feed them, how to get them to sleep, or what you're doing about sleep, what you're doing about development, and how you're once babies start to eat solid foods, how you're going to feed them solid foods. All of those things are your decision in your household, right? And so it's similar, kind of like building this protective barrier of, I'm going to go with my gut and know how to treat my body and take care of myself and take care of my baby.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. So I always like to end these with a fun thinking question. And so if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
Your body doesn't define your worth.
I love that. That's amazing. And of course, I mean, we could talk about this forever because I love talking about this stuff because I think it's so important. And when you kind of make that switch into more intuitive style eating, I feel like you just feel so much more free, I think, because you can kind of
Yeah.
almost feel like a burden to like food and to like how you have to like live your life. And so I think this is just a really cool topic. But where can everyone follow you, get more information, and learn more about, intuitive eating?
The best place to find me is on Instagram at busy.mom.nutrition. I share lots of food, body stuff over there, as well as like easy meals to help being a mom, help, feeding you yourself and your family make it easier. Excuse me. You can also go to my website, sarahgoldrd.com, Sarah with an H, gold like the color, and rd.com. And over there, you can learn about working with me. And I share some recipes on my blog and have some great free resources for moms looking to get into intuitive eating.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, it was a great topic to cover. I think it needs to be talked about more. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, guys, it's time for our Mom Tales of the Week. And this week, we decided to ask you, what is a song that reminds you of motherhood? And we got so many fun responses to this. And so as you're listening, I want you to think of what reminds you of motherhood. And it's not necessarily a song that's about motherhood or written by a mom or talks about motherhood. This could be just something nostalgic or holds a memory for you. Maybe you think of your own mom, or maybe when you found out you were pregnant, you heard a certain song, or driving to the doctors, or when you were in labor. So there's so many different things that could trigger that thought for you. So I'm going to try to play a small clip from each song, like really small clip, just so you can kind of hear the beat, because royalties and copyright, all that stuff. So, okay, the first one is from Lexi, and she says, "Can't Help Falling in Love with You" by Elvis. Okay, fun fact. My husband and I picked this song for When I Was Walking Down the Aisle, but by Ingrid Michaelson. So there's a remake. Highly recommend you listen to it. Oh, I love that song, but I love every version of it. I can definitely see why this reminds her of motherhood. Okay, song number 2 is from Lindsay, and she says, "You'll Be in My Heart" from the Tarzan soundtrack. I used to play that song for my daughter when she was in my belly, then bawled listening to it several times, listening to it with her. And this was actually a popular one. Also, Amanda said it, and she said, "My kids are 11, 8, and 2, and I still tear up singing it. They grow so fast. But no matter what, they'll always be my babies." Another, not trying to relate these all to me, but this was the song I danced to with my dad for the father-daughter dance at the wedding. So here's just a little clip. So that's a really good one. If you've not seen Tarzan in a long time, the music is so good in it. Okay, this next one just reminds me of my childhood just because it's Celine Dion. She says, "Celine Dion, because you loved me." It reminds me of my mom and now my daughter. I love Celine Dion. I could go back and listen to so many of her songs. Oh my gosh. Oh, now I want to listen to her today. Okay, this next one, I'll be honest, I've never heard of this song, but I do know Fantasia. I was a huge fan of Fantasia Barrino on American Idol. So Mary says, "Fantasia, falling in love tonight." I listened to it the day she was born, and all I did was cry. It was perfect. Minus the part where it's about a man, but the lyrics were perfect for everything else. So here's a little clip. So here you go. Okay, next one is by Maria, and she says, "Prayed for You" by Matt Stell. I've not heard of this song either, so let's see. Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, I could probably start crying if I listen to that whole thing right now. Pregnancy hormones. So I don't know if I'll listen to the whole thing. Maybe I will later. That's a sweet song. That's really sweet. And I feel like a lot of moms can relate to that feeling of like not knowing who their baby's going to be, who their baby is. I can feel the tears coming on. But you pray for that baby because you just yeah. Okay. Okay. I can't go. I can't keep going. Okay, Rachel says, "Slow Down" by Nicole Nordman. It's bittersweet, but very pretty song about how fast our babies grow up. Oh my gosh, you guys are tearing me apart today. I don't know if I can listen to this. Well, let's play a clip. Okay, my baby's not even here yet, and I'm crying. I'm crying thinking about that. Okay. Next song, you guys. I'm gonna need a break after this. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, the next person, at first, I'll be honest, when I first read it, I wasn't sure what song this was. Okay, it's Ashley, "Eternal Flame" by the Bangles. My mom sang it to me all the time when I was little. Oh my gosh, this song, we played it all the time, or I heard it on the radio all the time. We sang it in the car. Let me find a good part. You guys, these are such good songs. I'm gonna like make a little like playlist for myself now. These were awesome. There's a few I didn't get to, but like I said, when you're listening to this, think of the songs that, maybe like your parents played for you or you grew up listening to, or what reminds you of your baby right now, or what songs your baby really loves. Yeah, I'm gonna make a playlist. These are such sweet songs. And some of these I haven't heard since, I was a kid, but this was awesome. This was a fun question. All right. That's all I have for this week, guys. This has been very emotional. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week for another episode. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode. But before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notified of future episodes. We release new episodes every single Wednesday. See you next week.